Welcome to So You Think Your Car is Fast, where we dive into the world of high-end, fast cars and explore what it truly means to have a fast car. From the latest in supercar technology to the mechanics that make these machines go, we'll separate fact from fiction and uncover the misconceptions about speed and power that exist in the minds of the general public. Join us as we put the pedal to the metal and discover what it takes to have a car that truly lives up to the title of fast.
Well, Vipers are great. What they did I guess it would be in the mid '90s was unprecedented. They made a performance car out of a bunch of American muscle, and you can't argue with the numbers. It's a little rough around the edges. The interiors on the older ones weren't really, up to, supercar standards, but the performance numbers were, and it's just a different kind of car. My good friend Andy had one, and I absolutely love that thing.
Andy that has the GT3 now?
Blue GT3 Andy. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, if there's different ways to solve different problems, right? And the Viper is I am going to solve this problem with a giant hammer.
Okay. That's probably
and it's great. But not everybody solves every problem with the giant hammer, so I can understand why everybody loves them. And when I used to go to drag strips again in the '90s, people would always come up to me and be like, "I only have 4 cylinders in that thing. What's going on there?" And they'd always tell you like, there's no replacement.
What are you doing with that voice? What are you trying to personify there?
I think that's my bad redneck impression.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And they'd freak out that it was a 4-cylinder, and then they'd tell me there was no replacement for displacement. And I think we were saying at the time, well, technology is the replacement.
There literally is a replacement for displacement,
but now that they've figured, that entire section of car guy has figured out forced induction. Now you have a 9-liter people eater Viper engine that is twin turbo, and yeah. I mean, we can't compete with that. I mean, a 3,000 horsepower car is like one of Antonio's cars. It's just
yeah, they're pretty. Look, I think they're cool. I've been tempted every once in a while to buy one, or but
yeah, when I got my 911
transportation over everything, I don't know. I mean,
yes, I think we're being trolled.
Superior transportation, you got to buy a minivan. There is just nothing that beats the convenience of a minivan.
Cheap too. Yeah, $130,000, $150,000 just to get in the door in a Viper now. Of course, Todd has 2 Vipers behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the one time that guy showed up, I was at Denton Dragway, and I sure we probably can't say this on the podcast.
The 8th mile track?
The 8th mile track, yeah. And I was running like 719s in the 8th mile, something like that. And these guys were, that was really fast back then.
Yo, sure.
And these guys walk up, and I mean, dude, the guy was wearing overalls.
Yeah,
and he was chewing on straw. I'm not making this up.
He may have been the guy I had to run in at the same track back in like 1998.
And they had been drinking. It was obvious. And the guy is trying to count my spark plug wires, but I think he was like seeing double. And so he had to count a couple times because it wasn't 8. And he's like, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then he turns to his buddy and he says, "Well, it's a 4-banger." And I just, I didn't know. I just pretended I didn't hear them because I had nothing to say. I didn't know what to tell those guys.
Yeah, I told you about my story at the Denton track, right?
No.
I had my old Fox body Mustang, and we were bracket racing. And there was this guy that had like this just clapped out, I don't know, I guess it could have been late 70s Camaro that he was obviously sandbagging, right? Like, and but with the bracket racing, if you go faster than your bracket, you're out. So we raced, and we were racing for, I can't remember. It may have been, I got a trophy that night. I just don't remember what if it was first or second or third, but we were racing for this trophy, and he let off at the end, and right at the end I passed him, right? And I had like some friends, and my parents were there, and we were excited, right? We were cheering, yeah, right, my son, woohoo. And he came over to us, and he was so mad and told me that, I better put some money on the next race, and he could beat me. And I mean, he's probably like this 40-year-old. At the time I felt like 40 years old was old, but he's like this 40-year-old dude heckling this senior in high school. And I was like, I'll race you again. I don't care, but I'm not going to put money on it. And so we raced, and he beat me. He did beat me again. And man, I mean, he came over to rub that in my face, and I was like, this is for real, dude? You're 40 years old, and this is what you're doing on your weekend to make yourself feel better. It was, I was just like blown away. Most car guys I knew were pretty cool, but this guy, I mean, I seriously hurt his feelings, and I did not mean to. I did not mean to.
There's those guys, everywhere you go. I mean, I used to hang out at drag strips on the weekends a lot, and you see a lot of things, man.
Yeah,
I'm sure. See a lot of things.
I'm sure.
It's a nice track.
So right now, as of now, I have no update on my turbos. I don't know where they're going to come from at this point.
Have you made any progress since we talked about it the other day?
Yeah, I got some pricing from Vivid Racing. I got pricing from Force Performance. Garrett wants to give me one.
Garrett only has one, though, right?
Yeah.
They only have one in their sponsor program.
Right.
Did you call AMS?
No, I did not. But listen, Wayne told me to wait. I don't know if I told you guys this.
No.
But he said that because I called him. I said, hey, should I get the 1.21, exhaust on these new on these new turbos, because I don't want to be super laggy. And he's like, you know what? We're doing a GTR right now at Horsepower Lounge that has a 3.8, and he can't push enough air on the 121s. I'm like, oh, I'm only a 4-liter, so you think I'm going to have that kind of problem too? He's like, just wait, because we're going to go down to a 1.0 AR on these turbos and give it a dyno run and see what happens. So he wants me to wait till next week to see kind of this back-to-back test that he's doing on the GTR. So, and this GTR is not a big power car. He makes like 1,400, 1,1400. So, and that's all they want to make.
Small potatoes
on these turbos. They're the G35 1050. So, I'm going to wait to see which AR to actually get, and it'll likely be either the 82 or the 100. I don't know. So,
do you have an 82 option?
Yeah.
Yes. I think it was in the 63.
Okay, I was thinking you were just deciding between the 1.0 and the 1.2, and I was like, just get the 1.0 then if he's already struggling with the 1.2.
Yeah, well, the thing is that turbine wheel will flow more than the turbine wheel that Todd has now, right?
Yeah,
and Todd's on the 0.8, whatever it is, 0.8x turbine housing now.
82.
So if it's going, it's going to make what, like 50 horsepower, 75 horsepower more per side is what we think.
Yeah, I would say conservatively, right?
So, I'd almost say put the 82s on it, but I don't know that you have exhaust back pressure on the car right now, do you? EMAP?
No.
So we don't know what the back pressure is now, but yeah. I mean, if the 1.0s work okay, like I know from looking at your dyno sheets, your car makes like peak torque right around 5,500 as it sits, which is great because your power band is like 5,500 to 8,500, 8,800. So that's great. But like if on those 1.0s, the peak torque is more like 6,000, 6,100 on that GTR, then it's probably not a very good idea to go to that big of a turbine housing.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I can't afford 500-600 RPM loss. especially at a roll race, which look, roll races might be kind of on the way out because 2K is the only one that I know of any significance. And who knows if they're ever going to do it again.
Jason even introduced a roll race time or a schedule at Shift Sector, and nobody did it, or at least very few. So I don't know.
Well, the problem with roll racing is like roll racing in the way that we do it now is the start, and it doesn't matter, what people say. It's impossible to start it fairly with a person sitting there hitting the green button.
There's too many variables and driving, operator error kind of situations.
How many times have you sat at a drag strip and watched two cars race, and it all, from the perspective that you're at, it looks like one car's ahead, then the other car's ahead, then it looks like the other car is catching up, right? And you're like, and then all of a sudden the wind light goes off and you say, oh, well, I couldn't even tell who was ahead. And so as that perspective change happens, as the cars goes down the track, it's like impossible for our brain to reconcile. And we don't know who's ahead of who, and we don't know who's going faster than who. And so the same thing happens to the starter. And what he tries to do is sit right at the point where he wants to start the race. But one of the features and also one of the bugs of a roll race is that there's a starting zone. So if you're going to do a roll race, you roll into the starting zone, and then while the two cars are next, the goal of the starter is while those two cars are next to each other, at some point in there, he hits the green light and you go. So they're never going to be the same distance because of that, because the finish line is the finish line. It doesn't move. That's where you're trying to get to first. But the start can happen, and then the way these things are usually laid out, 60 miles an hour is about 88 feet per second. So if you want to spend 3 seconds in the starting zone, you need a 250 odd foot starting zone. So your race length can vary by as much as 250, 300, sometimes depending how they set them up, 400 feet. So how can a starter sit at the starting line to see where they're at?
Yeah, it's just not precise. I mean, you can't.
I actually built some technology to solve this problem a while ago, kind of tying into my day job. I built a roll racing starting system, and it works, and it will instrument the cars and actuate the system. But I haven't really jumped on it. It's kind of something I have, but we haven't found the right way to distribute it or, make it a reality. We'd like to make Texas Invitational go again and maybe use it down there. But, the momentum from roll racing got hurt dramatically a few years ago just because there were some real controversial finishes. And when I say controversial, I mean, like, how when you watch a video on CNN or Fox News and it says the video appears to show, and then you watch a video of a guy getting his head bashed in. It's like, I don't think it appears to show a guy getting his head bashed in. It's really
happening.
I think it's really happening. So, it's the same thing. I mean, it was obvious errors that were made, and, people get upset at racetracks, and it's a very adrenaline fueled sport, and they don't make good decisions. So,
I mean, I get why it started, right? I mean, it's the quote unquote legal version of 3 honks and go on the street, but it's I mean, it's a good try, I guess.
That's the one thing that it needs, Dan. Some kind of technology that you've created or someone else has created that just makes, it just eliminates slingshotting and red lighting and all that stuff, because there's a lot of redos in roll racing. So, but it is a good type of racing to save on suspension and axles.
Well, I'd love to see it come back, because it's really what supercar or hypercar drag racing should be. because as you mentioned earlier in our little talk here, you don't like the look or the feel of putting giant drag slicks on the back of your car. And that's what you have to do to do a drag race in order to, really get the right performance out of the car and be competitive. And with a roll race, you don't have to do that. You can run, more street appropriate tires. You can run radials, and it's not just destroying parts. So
Right.
If that type of racing could come back in a more equitable form. But Amar wants to do Texas Invitational again. I think he's a little gun shy to do it because all the negative attention one of those iffy conclusions brings.
Right.
A lot of because here what happens is everybody gets online, and whoever it is that they know and they like, they just start supporting them. And maybe they're even not the greatest at deciphering data and watching a video and understanding what was really happening. Because most of those guys that were commenting on this stuff, they didn't understand how the start worked, really, how the distance was variable.
Right.
All those.
I just think even if you have two competitors that are honestly trying to make it equal, that's already hard. And then you introduce people in that are trying to take advantage. And it blows my mind.
Well, like Todd said, slingshotting. So slingshotting is basically what happens is you purposefully stay behind, and as you approach the starting zone, you take off early. And so then you're even with the guy that you're racing in the starting zone, but you're going 15 miles an hour faster than him or whatever. And, you can do some math and figure out how much the cars weigh and what the speed differential is, and actually come up with a number of how much horsepower of the other guy you're negating. So if you know roughly, how much power the other guy makes or how much you think he makes, you can do it in a way that you're, negate his extra power and not get caught. And some of these guys are doing stuff like that. And so it's really hard for the manual starting guy to see it. And, because of that perspective shift.
Yep.
I went and talked to the people who make the Hawkeye cameras, like the for tennis, and to tell you if the ball is in or the ball is out. And they do the same thing for soccer goal line technology. They have this camera system out there that tell you if the ball went across the line. And I explained the parameters to them, and they said, "Oh yeah, no problem. We could go ahead and build that and get you the parts. Here's the bill of materials." And it was $178,000.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we might need to have a little bit more modest of a budget. So, I did it in a different way, but.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, the slingshot, arguably was invented by me, but I was young, and I didn't know what I was doing at first.
I thought it was invented by that kid in the RX-7.
Oh, no. That rookie, he stole that from me.
He stole that from you. Yeah. I watched you race that guy.
Don't the Todd. Okay.
7 times. This was before we knew each other. At Caddo Mills, Todd's in the finals for the manual car class, or was it? I think it was
175.
175 mile an hour class. And they go out and race, and I mean, you could see it. It was so blatant what the kid was doing. So I think what you surely did, Todd, was you invented the slingshot defense.
I invented it and then made a cure.
Yeah. So you jammed on the brakes and turned around.
Yep.
Because the way it worked essentially was the guy running the race would call for a rerun and the cars would turn around. But Todd called for his own rerun and turned around. And so it visually didn't look like a race anymore. So everybody just kind of went with it. And you had to go against this guy like 5 times.
1320 posted the video.
And Todd just and the guy kept cheating off the start, and Todd kept hitting the brakes and going back. And I was watching with my friend Dan, actually. There's 2 Dans that day. And we were like, I can't believe this is happening. And like Todd's just hitting the brakes. They're not telling him, like I could see they weren't telling you to hit the brakes. You were just like, no, this is bull. And turning around, and I was like, that's genius.
It's old silver car, 996.
I don't know if you remember this, but I came up to you afterwards and told you good job for kicking that guy's ass.
How long ago was that?
2016, 15.
Yeah,
I don't know.
7 years ago. Good times.
Guess what I'm doing this weekend?
The track?
I'm learning how to turn on a real racetrack.
Left and right?
Well, I mean, I assume left and right, and got to use my brakes too.
Yeah, it's Eagles Canyon Raceway, so it's
the never lift philosophy. I can't take that advice for this weekend.
No, you're gonna have to.
Yeah. And I'm going with my son and my dad are both in their cars, so we'll see how it goes.
So so you're going to be in the GT3.
Yep.
Your son will be in the Mustang.
Yep.
And your dad will be in the.
It's a G80 M3 competition, all-wheel drive.
Ooh, cool.
He cool. I mean, he's done several of the BMW events, not in his car though, with their car, and that's his biggest worry. Is he's like, I can't drive as hard as I normally do. He goes, last time I went off the track a bunch of times and I didn't care. This is my car now, and I'm like, yeah, you're gonna have to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, really.
We'll see. It's gonna be funny because I'm gonna show up in this GT3 with a roll bar and a nice carbon fiber helmet and shoes and gloves, and I'm gonna be an idiot. I'm gonna be such a poser because I've never done.
Well, I tell you what, Taylor, seriously, get as much video, because I mean that would make a decent podcast segment, So
yes, we try to turn.
Yeah, get some good video.
I don't know.
Come on.
I mean, it's an introductory course, so the racing's going to be pretty tame, I'm sure.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if I have video equipment. I do have in my roll bar that's in the GT3. It's wired for a GoPro already, but I've never used it or experimented with it. So,
what does wired for a GoPro mean?
I mean, like the wires are run up through the cage and out the corner of the cage. So I'm sure with the GoPro cage mount and a GoPro, it's easy to set up.
Is it for the audio, or I mean, what wires do you need for a GoPro?
You need power.
I guess power.
Okay.
I guess that is a good point. There's wires. There are wires coming out of the cage. I don't know what it's for. Look, the guy I bought the car from was honest. He told me he'd done I can't remember, 6 or 8 track sessions with it. So
maybe it's wired for a different camera system.
Maybe, that could be,
or a microphone. It could be a microphone. Is there like a little 1/8-inch mini male plug in the end of one of them for a microphone?
I don't know. Cool. I'll have to look.
Take some pictures of the plugs. We'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
Speaking of GoPros, I want to come out with some different angles. I want to mount a camera in the engine compartment. I don't know if that is a good idea or not, but that'd be kind of cool, right?
I've done that before, actually, because I had an exhaust that was coming in, like when the car went under full power and the engine was moving around, something was tapping, and I had to adjust the exhaust to get rid of it. So I put a camera back there to see what it was.
To see where. But yeah, I mean, what are the best angles? I mean, on top, facing forward. I mean, when we're doing a half-mile run, I don't know. I guess it's best to show the other car. Obviously, facing forward is boring. Obviously,
I really like your Need for Speed angle with the big arm.
Yeah, the POV, that's definitely that's here to stay for sure. But I'm thinking of other, like the footwell was pretty cool. But once maybe that's fun. But
it's not as the footwell in my car is not terribly cool.
Yeah, no. 2 pedals is boring.
Well, look, if you want, Taylor, on a pedal.
You can take my 360 GoPro. Todd and I have the same one. And then all you got to do is just get a clamp.
I have one somewhere.
Just get a clamp-on mount and stick it on your roll bar, and then you've got everything in the car.
Yeah, but the problem is I mean, we're going real early Saturday morning. It's Thursday, and Amazon is like challenged at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not getting anything from Amazon. With my ring light still isn't here.
I want to do like I admire Todd for, maybe that's a strong word. I recognize and get excited about his camera angles and stuff, and I'd like to do that to have more content. But man, I can barely remember the 2 or 3 things I got to do when I get up to the starting lane anyway.
Absolutely. That's why
that's why I stopped doing the cameras, was because it's just too much work.
And then you could turn it on and just have like hours of footage, but I'm not going to go back and edit that. I mean, I barely look at any pictures I take anyway.
So do you see the pain that I'm going through in these events to get this footage for you?
I do.
It's not lost on us, Todd. I do still have that video of me hitting the windshield wipers instead of the anti-lag at Texas Invitational. It's like, I'm racing this guy, right? We're all lined up. It's a good start. And all of a sudden my windows are going.
Gotta get that bug off, man.
And he's driving off. And I'm
that's the inherent problem that you get when you got all your OEM stocks and buttons that are supposed to be doing all this other trickery.
Yeah.
My anti-lag is on the what is it? The cruise control stock, right? So press it in just to turn it on, and then hold it down. So I have to hold it down with my right hand, left hand on the steering wheel, and then full throttle, and then reach for I think I'm in second. So I got to reach down and then go right to third, without, money shifting the engine.
So what you're
There's a lot going on. That's why I don't do the anti-lag on the roll race.
Yeah, we need to set it up so that it's a button that is.
Mine's supposed to have that feature on my Cyvex. I was reading through the manual the other day. I don't know if we've set it up because it's just been I've never used it.
You've had other things to do. It's when you get the car sorted, then you get to work out the other fun stuff. Fortunately, I've had a while to play with cameras and things like that because the car's been sorted for a while. But I think hopefully, who knows if I'm going to go back to another month or 6 months of testing and dialing the car back in after we get it back. But I hope not. I hope it sorts pretty quick.